If we're good salespeople, we take the time to do our research, to get our facts straight, to handle the meeting properly. If we're professional salespeople, we take the time afterwards to figure out what went right, what went wrong, and what happens next. Let's talk about debriefing a sales call. Lauren Valentine joins us next on Purpose Under Pressure. Well, welcome back. My name's Bryan, and this is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about developing sales and leadership success on purpose and under pressure, because that is definitely there. It's brought to you by the professional sales and leadership training team at Sandler by the Ruby Group. You'll find them in Akron and in Columbus, Ohio. They're in Jacksonville, Florida. They're in Capital Region, New York. They do their work on purpose. So what does that mean? It means they have a method of doing things. It means they're doing things for the right reason. It means that they're going to come and help your company, your organization with a custom solution that works, that fits. And it means that if those two things don't match, if the companies they're trying to work with, or if you're trying to reach them and it's not a perfect fit, then they're not going to work together. It means you do things for the right reasons, for the right purposes, on purpose. And if your company is like that, I think the two of you ought to get together. And I think it starts with a phone call, it starts with an email or some kind of connection. You can find the Ruby Group at therubygroup.sandler.com. The Ruby Group, actionable strategies for today's toughest business challenges. So let's get cooking. We'll set this up this way. I've been selling a long time. This has happened maybe once or twice. It's a perfect world type of situation. We get a meeting, we call, we get the meeting. The very next day they set up, the customer says, yeah, sure, signs on the dotted line, writes you a check. That doesn't always happen, but I remember it very well when it did. It's awesome, but it doesn't always happen that way. You wish that it would, but that's not the way it goes. What happens is that we have the meeting, we leave without a commitment. We hurry on to the next meeting on our schedule. We leave that one with more questions than answers. We hurry to the next one. We get stood up. Pretty soon, we're home late for dinner, and we do it again tomorrow. That's the life of a salesperson, and it's hard. Lauren Valentine is a partner and trainer at Sandler by the Ruby Group in the Capital Region, New York, we just talked about. She's training the Ruby Group clients right now on something called debriefing the sales call. I think that might help. Caught my attention. So let's talk about that. Lauren, welcome to Purpose Under Pressure.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really glad you're here because this is a hard one. We just work and work and work and work and work. You heard that buildup, right? Did I nail it? That's the way we'd love it to be, but it doesn't work that way, does it?
Well, I think most of the clients that we work with and even ourselves don't necessarily have a one call close in their sales cycle. Usually it's multiple meetings, and some folks have a very long sales cycle. It could be 18 to 24 months, depending on the industry. And so, that really varies.
Yeah, it really does. And so we have to figure out a way to hold on to what we learned from each sales call, maybe try to figure out what's next. We have to have a plan somewhere. We call this Purpose Under Pressure. We have to have a purpose for what we're doing. And so when I heard about the sales debriefing and the kind of going back and looking for the gold and uncovering things, it really did catch my attention. What is this concept of debriefing a sales call, and how can it help this kind of chaos that I just described?
Yeah. So, we work with our clients on really creating process, systems, structure around how they're selling. And debriefing sales calls is one way to help you increase the structure, cut down on wasted time in between meetings or in between interactions in the sales cycle. So shortening your sales cycle or disqualifying opportunities early on that don't really deserve a place in your funnel.
So we can take that sales meeting that we just had and kind of figure out what went right, what went wrong, what did I learn, what am I going to do next? And it gives us some understanding of where that plan lies. So what are a few things in a sales debrief kind of a process that you're looking for? Can you give me some examples of what we're trying to find?
Yeah. And, this is something that you can do as an individual salesperson. If you're a sales leader or a sales manager, this is a process that you can follow with your team when you're coaching them and debriefing sales calls. So it could really go either way here. But number one is really starting with what type of account were they? And we use an account segmentation tool called CARE, Kare. So, was it a keep account, meaning they're an existing client or customer? I have 100% of the business that I could have with them. There's really not any opportunity for growth with that account. So, maybe that was a meeting to maintain the relationship or make sure that they're 100% happy. An attain account would be new business, right? So these are prospects or folks that you're meeting with that you're not working with today, but you believe there is a reason to potentially work together. R stands for recapture. So, recapture would be an account that you worked with in the past. They're no longer a client or customer, but you believe that there is a reason to re-engage. Maybe you had a service issue 3 years ago and you fixed that. And so they're open to meeting with you again. And then E is expand. So those are your accounts that you're currently working with, but there's room to grow, to upsell, to cross sell additional revenue with them. And so it really starts with identifying, number one, what type of account did you even meet with under that care segmentation?
And so how does that help? I talked about the chaos, the 3 meetings in a row and 3 more meetings tomorrow. So if I identify what they are, if I just do that, that gives me an idea of what to do next, doesn't it? Kind of gives me a target on where to put things, where to schedule things. Is that the most important thing that comes out of the debriefing process?
It's one element.
Okay.
You would have a different strategy depending on
Yeah,
what
you
type of
would.
account it is.
Hmm.
There are other things that you would want to take a look at, like what was my upfront contract for that interaction? What was the purpose of our interaction? What was on their agenda? Did we hit on everything that was on their agenda? Why or why not? What was on our agenda? And did we achieve that? And what were the desired outcomes of that interaction, and did we meet those? You could also take a look at who was involved on the client side, who were the key stakeholders that were involved, and did I have everyone in that meeting that needed to be in that meeting, or is a potential clear next step that I need to be introduced to other people in that account, or that other folks need to get involved in the conversation. Looking at also, what did I learn? What did I or we learn during that meeting? So, what did we uncover about that prospect or client that we didn't know before going into that meeting? And it could be a variety of things, right? If we think about it in Sandler terminologies, did we uncover that there's a compelling emotional reason for them to work with us, and what is the impact of the problem that they're having? Have we, depending on where we are in the sales cycle, have we talked about their expectations for financial investment? Do we know who the key players are on their end that will be involved in making a decision, and do we know what their decision criteria and process looks like? So, really taking a look at and dissecting, what did we learn about this prospect or customer during that interaction? You can also, take a look at, and this is probably my favorite one, although I don't know if it's the most important one, but what is my clear next step, right? So, a lot of times when we talk with a new client, they'll say our sales cycles are very long. And that could be true. And it is true for some industries. But a lot of the time, what we find is that folks are experiencing a sales cycle that is longer than it needs to be based on the average for their industry. And typically, that's because of stalls or delays that happen during the sales cycle. So I always say we want to leave every meeting with a clear next step, meaning some sort of interaction that is not only on the sales person's calendar, but it's on the prospect or client's calendar as well. And it's been mutually committed to. So taking a look at what is our clear next step, what is the purpose of our next meeting, what needs to happen between now and our next meeting, right? Are there action items on our end? And also, what has the prospect committed to on their end, right? So, maybe they need to pull together some data or some reports, or, maybe they need to get technical specs over or something like that, right? But what needs to happen between now and that next step? And then, I also like to think about and take a moment like, where did I feel like I got stuck in that call? Where did I ask a question and it felt uncomfortable for me? Or, you know, where did I feel like things maybe weren't totally aligned in that call? And that sort of leads into, were there any red flags that we uncovered during this interaction that is telling us this may not be as strong of an opportunity, or these are areas that we need to address and flush out before we move to a proposal or a contract or an RFP type of a stage. So those are some of the areas that I would look at. There may be others depending on, the different unique businesses that we work with that they might want to incorporate as well.
So the alternative to this, Lauren, I think, is the salesperson that runs back to the office and enters in a name and how long I was at the business, where I was in the CRM, and then moves on to the next thing. And there's not really a plan moving forward. It's just did this, done that, next. This is actually taking some time, figuring out what went right, what went wrong, what do I still need to learn, what did I learn, where can I move forward. I think a salesperson that's honest with themselves can go through this on their own and learn quite a bit. But this sounds like gold for a sales leader. How does a sales leader use this to make everybody better?
Yeah, one of the ways to change behavior within your team is by creating habits, right? So if you have 10 questions as a sales leader or sales manager that you're consistently asking to debrief every sales call, you will start to change the behavior within your team. Maybe those are areas that they weren't always uncovering during a sales call. Like, for example, a clear next step. Maybe they're leaving with, thank you for coming in today. This looks great. We'll look it over and get back to you, or something like that, right? So if you can have a consistent set of like 8 or 10 questions that you're asking to debrief a sales call, starts to build that habit in your people, right? And they start to think, oh, my manager, she'll be asking me that question. I better make sure I leave the meeting with that, or else I'm, going to look like I don't know what I'm doing in front of my manager.
You mentioned your favorite one as far as the clear future. Are there a few things that if I'm a sales leader listening to this now, I'm saying I'm going to create my sales debrief and it's going to include A, B, and C? What might those be?
Yeah, I would say, what was the purpose of the meeting? Did you achieve the objectives that you set out to achieve during that meeting? What did you learn about the client or customer? Why is that important? What red flags did you potentially uncover? And what is your clear next step? And is that mutually agreed to with the prospect or client?
Last question, Lauren. Do you think this process helps me with my next call be a better salesperson, or helps me follow up better with the call I just left? Where's the biggest gold there?
I'm going to say both. I mean, part of it is debriefing, right? What did I do well? What could I have done better for the next time I go on a sales call, right? The other piece of that is being very intentional about what is the purpose of your next meeting and what needs to happen in the next meeting based on what you uncovered today to drive that opportunity forward. Every time you're meeting with a prospect, it should be either moving to a no, it's not a fit, or we should be advancing it to the next step. Now, I will say that if you don't have a defined sales process, and that is a topic for another day, then your people probably don't really know what that next step should be or what even needs to happen during each meeting. And that's another area where people waste a lot of time.
Lauren, thank you so much. That whole chaotic thing that I told you about probably won't change, but this sure does help if we can just implement this process.
Well, thank you for having me. I always love being here.
That's Lauren Valentine. She's partner and trainer at Sandler by the Ruby Group. Folks, this is the kind of stuff we talk about. These are the things that we talk about. The real world situation of pressure for salespeople, that's not going to go away. But if we do things with a process, we do things within a system, we do things on purpose, we can overcome that pressure in the right way. And that's what we talk about. And so we do this every week, sometimes multiple times per week. Go ahead and subscribe to this show if you haven't yet already. That way you won't miss a show. You'll find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at bryanmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. It's brought to you by the Ruby Group. Actionable strategies for today's toughest business challenges. Until next time, no matter how high the pressure gets, stay on purpose.